or I would say kind of an apology. And the apology goes to, I think his name was like Matt Araiza. I said that I was going to make this segment in one of the podcasts because I think it was last year he got accused of sexual assault of a I guess it was like a female student at San Diego State University, and I was pretty hard on the guy, and I was pretty hard on him because, look, my mentality about this stuff, it might not be many people's mentality about it, but I'm relatively principled in this position. I know a lot of victims, I truly do, okay, and I myself have not been a victim of any of that stuff, but I'm more likely to believe victims than not. Okay? And I also want to add this, right? These cases are very difficult to solve. Extremely difficult. More than likely, they don't get solved. I think the percentage of them getting solved, and someone getting put in jail, is like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. It is so incredibly low that it's even going to go to trial. And I came out pretty hard against the guy. I haven't watched the video. I tried to be like alleged. This is alleged, that's alleged, so that, while I do have an opinion and I do lean a certain way, I was trying not to be too biased. But I do apologize if he didn't do anything wrong, number one. Okay? And then two, I apologize if it was a malicious lie. Okay? I told a story during that podcast about how I was in a situation once where I accused someone of doing something that they didn't do, but in my mind, I thought that they did it. So like when I was in college, and I know this takes away from the original story, but when I was in college, I mean, it's all talk about the mentality of it. When I was in college, there were these guys in my dorm who would just throw knives up in the air. It was the most ridiculous thing in the world. Like switchblade knives, they just throw it in the air. And I was like, this is the stupidest thing ever because someone's going to lose a finger. And I'm so surprised that, they must have been professional knife throwers because no one ever lost a finger. But it was one of those situations where like the guys in there would like, they'd pretend to like stab you, and I'd be like, dude, this is lame. Like, this is dumb. And they knew that I didn't like it. I didn't like it when knives were around. I'm not a huge weapon person. I don't carry weapons around. That's just not something that I do. But one day, this one guy comes up to me, and he's like way bigger than me. And there's this other dude who like would always like hang around him, hang out with him and stuff like that. It was kind of like I would say it was kind of like a Bulk and Skull situation, or it was kind of like a, like a Pinky and the Brain kind of thing, where like one guy was like obviously the smarter one, and the other one just was kind of like the lackey or something like that. And what happened was they were just kind of playing around, and one of the guys put my hands behind me, and the other guy was just like pretending to stab me, and like it scared the daylights out of me because I was like, that's just not what I do, right? I try to stay out of confrontations. I was like 19 years old. Well, come to say, the RA shows up and they run away. He's like, what happened? And I was like, well, this guy pretended to make a stabbing motion towards me, and this other guy, he put my hands behind my back. Come to find out, he actually didn't do that. It wasn't the guy who I thought it was. It was this other dude who just so happened I was cooler with. But I didn't know who was behind me, so I kind of just made an assumption about something that about a person who didn't actually do what I thought that they did. And let's just say I did the right thing, and I kind of did the right thing and the wrong thing. I was like, well, I was just mistaken about who did it, but I didn't actually tell them about who did it. It was just a misunderstanding. They apologized to me privately, and I put in a good word for them. They weren't kicked out of the dorm. I guess that's because I'm a nice guy or because I'm a charitable individual. And they promised me that they wouldn't do anything like that again. And I ended up becoming really good friends with them. But the point is that just because he wasn't the one who did the assault, Matt Araiza, it doesn't mean that nothing happened. Or it doesn't mean that the woman in question, the victim, or the alleged victim, was lying. It just means that there's a possibility that she could have been mistaken. I'm not someone who believes that victims or supposed victims should face criminal penalties. Because I always say it like this, and I know this is a sports podcast, but this is a sports subject. I always put it like this. If you give criminal penalties to victims, even if they're men, believe you me, victims of this kind of stuff are men too. So it's not just a woman thing. It's already difficult to come out and say, hey, this happened to me. But it's even worse when, like, if so facto, either the charges get dropped or the person gets found not guilty, then now you are set up for criminal penalties. Just because you're considered not guilty doesn't mean you didn't do it. It's just because there wasn't any evidence to prove it. And I'll put it like this, and I'll be charitable. I will apologize to Matt Araiza again if he didn't do it. And number two, if it was malicious lie against him, smearing his character. I'm against that too. I'm against smearing characters. I'm against defamation of character. I think there could be a civil case there if in fact she was malicious. But I'm not going to touch that with the 10-foot pole. I'm just going to apologize, especially for kind of thinking that this was open and shut when obviously it wasn't. I do still support victims. I do still support people out there who have gone through stuff like this. But at the end of the day, I really don't think that this is. I really don't think that the victim was lying. I think that there's a possibility she could have been mistaken, but at the end of the day, that's not up for me to decide, and I should have been more coy about accusations, and I will try my best not to do that in the future.